All right. So everybody is muted. I didn't do that. Don't take it personally, so that I can hear myself a little bit. So just a bit of an update. A big event happened about a week and a half ago, I guess it is now. It was the 20th. So today's the second and the third. Lost track of the days. The Judge Smith approved the settlement, the $30 million settlement with Prospect Medical Holdings and the Angel Pension Group. As you might recall, Prospect Medical Holdings, their portion of that 30 million was 27,250,000, and Angel Pension was the balance at $2.75 million. The demand on those were funded in two ways. Prospect funded their portion of the settlement through a pledge of 2 letters of credit, totaling the 27,250, and the Angel Pension Group deposited the 2.75 million into the court registry. Today, the documents were delivered to both the court as well as to JP Morgan Chase, who holds the letter of credit, to get that money transferred over to us so that it can then be invested into the pension and start working for you in terms of interest. So as of tomorrow, hopefully by the end of this week, I will have both, because the court will cut a check. JP Morgan will wire the money. Excuse me. So obviously the JP Morgan will come to us more quickly. But I should have both amounts, the 2.75 million from the registry as well as the 27.25 million from JP Morgan Chase in hand by the end of the week. And it will be, as soon as we get it and confirm that it's arrived, subject to any flow on the check from the court registry, we will then immediately shoot it over to Bank of America, who will then advise the investment manager that the funds are there, and then they will rebalance the investments to make sure that they're invested properly. So that is the big news on that. Obviously, as you all know, in addition to approving the settlement, the court also approved the fees to Wisto, Sheena & Lovely, which took all of the litigation on a contingency. So those fees were also approved. So the 30 million will be reduced by the 23 1/3% that Wisto, Sheena & Lovely was getting as a contingency as class counsel. So the net to the estate will be somewhere in the $23 to $24 million range, which based, excuse me, based on the cash on hand that we have now in the plan, which is approximately 66 million, that'll put us somewhere in the 90 to $89 million range, which if any of you were at the report or heard the report that I gave about 2 weeks ago, that'll put us somewhere about $2 to $3 million higher than we were at this time 4 years ago as we approach the 4th year anniversary of this case. When we started this case, we were between 86 and $87 million in the plan. And it'll be 4 years and a couple of weeks since we've been operating this receivership. And with this settlement, that puts us at about 89 to 90 million, which, like I said, is about $3 or $4 million, $2, $3, $4 million higher than where we were when we started. So that's all good news. It's not, doesn't mean that the plan's out of the woods, doesn't mean that the work is done. It just means we got that settlement, and that's a big piece of what we needed to do. And the last group of defendants is the diocese and diocesan entities. Speaking of that, and again, I'll answer any questions once I'm done. Speaking of that, the judge, meaning Judge Smith of the federal court, asked the parties to attempt to mediate the dispute between the diocese and the plan. And so we have scheduled a mediation. I believe it is going to begin in October. Mediation statements will be due about 5 days before the mediation starts, and we'll see where we can go with that. Mediation, just for those of you who aren't aware or familiar with it, is a non-binding process. In this case, we have the former Chief Justice of the Supreme Court, Frank Williams, who's going to be the mediator of the case. He was the mediator of the Prospect settlement. He helped to mediate the dispute so that that settlement could be reached. He's doing this one as well. Obviously, we will walk into it with our good faith hopes that we will be able to walk out with a resolution that is favorable to the plan and fair. But it's a non-binding process. So if we end the mediation without a settlement, then we just continue on. It's kind of a give it a shot to see if you can negotiate a deal. And if you can't negotiate something that you think makes sense, then go back to the litigation process. And it's not uncommon that sometimes after discovery and things like that have started, that mediation then starts again, because now the parties have a little better idea of the strength and weakness of their case, and they may go back to mediation. In this case, it'll be the third time, because we did engage the diocese a couple of years ago in some mediation, which ended up unsuccessful. So that's where we are with the diocese. No offer has been presented by them. No offer has been presented. I can't even say that I would accept. It's just nothing has been advanced. And we have not had any substantive talks. And the reason why the mediation was scheduled was at the suggestion, which when a judge makes a suggestion, you kind of just do it because you know that's what they want to see. So at the judge's suggestion, we stepped forward to select dates for mediation. That's where we are now. With regard to the PBGC has really not communicated anything to us new. We continue to send them information. We continue to keep them apprised of everything that's going on. They have not asked for any formal meeting, nor have they asked for anything beyond what we send them that's filed with the court. So I don't have any update as to the PBGC and what they may or may not ultimately do. So that is about everywhere we are right now. I'm trying to think if there's anything else that's pressing. Not much has been happening in the liquidating receivership for the old entities. There are some negotiations on some claim issues and other monies, but there's nothing substantive to report back on that. And so that's where we are. We're walking into our 4th year anniversary. I guess, unfortunately, that it's been 4 years, but fortunately that we're still here talking about it all. And with the settlement completed with Prospect and Angel, that leaves just the diocese. And that process with the judge asking for us to try mediation has begun in earnest. And with that, I will open the floor to any questions that anybody has. Does anybody have any questions?
Steve, John Baguette, I have a question.
Hi, John. How are you?
Pretty well. Nice. Been a good summer. Question is liquidation. How much funds is left in the liquidation fund? I know there's some outstanding claims from various groups, but what is the most we can hope to get from the liquidation funds?
You mean from the liquidating receivership?
Yes.
That's the most we can get from there, I believe, is a number probably, and this is like in various pieces. This isn't just a claim process, but I believe that there's probably somewhere between 10 and 15 million there. Although I say that with reservation, because there are a number of things that have to happen there. There are claims that have been filed with the liquidating receivership that are substantial, which we do not believe, I guess I shouldn't say that aren't valid. I'll leave that to the liquidating receiver, but that I believe are substantially inflated or improper. And if we can successfully, or if the liquidating receiver can successfully either negotiate those claims out or have them denied, at least in part, then that will depend on how much money we have. We are the largest. We have a secured portion of our claim and an unsecured portion of the claim. The largest part of the claim is the unsecured portion, but we are also even with those other claimants, the largest unsecured claimant in the liquidating receiverships. And if we eliminate those claims that are, as I said, artificially inflated, then that will give us the lion's share, if not the totality of the funds remaining in that. And like I said, based on various pieces, some of them, and the reason I say various pieces is there is a claim process where the liquidating receiver will pay us on the plan's claim against St. Joe's and Roger Williams. But there are also funds that, pursuant to the settlement that we reached with St. Joe's and Roger Williams, the old St. Joe's and Roger Williams, that there are also funds that were held by those entities, escrows and things of that nature, that they actually pledged to us. So it would be the liquidating receiver working to get those funds into his estate, which would just actually be a pass through to us. It wouldn't be subject to a claim because it was part of the settlement. And then there's the total of all of those is somewhere between 10 and 15 million, I believe.
Now, I believe that most of those other claims are malpractice suits, or many of them are malpractice suits. Is that correct?
No, there are some malpractice claims. There are some workers' comp claims. There are also some DEM claims. So there's a variety of claims that receivership.
Are any of those claims covered by insurance? If you know, I know it's not your bailiwick, but if you should know,
The workers' comp obviously are, malpractice are, and that's why there's a large sum of money that the Department of Labor and Training is holding. There's a large sum of money in escrow that we are dealing with both the Department of Labor and Training and Beacon, the insurer, on getting that back. There are funds which we believe were improperly paid over to Beacon that they owe us back on some of those issues. So there are a wide variety of amounts, and some are covered by insurance and some are not. Like, for example, the environmental issue with DEM is not covered by any insurance. But I also don't believe that their claim has been, I believe they made a claim of approximately $50 million was what they claim that they're owed. And I think that is, I will say, ridiculously inflated, to the tune where I don't even believe that the amount that they would be owed reaches the $1 million mark, never mind 50 million.
Thank you.
Sure. Any other questions? I'm going to scroll over to the next page. Okay, I don't see. Okay, Bruce, hold on one second. I just clicked unmute for you. I can't hear you if you're talking. Hold on. Clicked it again. You got to unmute it.
Can you hear me now?
Yep, I got you.
Perfect. Has there ever been a complete actuarial study done?
We do one every year. So I have the new actuary that I brought in, which is GRS. They work with the accountant that I brought in, which is and every year we do a full actuarial analysis of the plan, both for funding purposes, for underfunded status, and for purposes of filing the federal forms that we have to file. So that's done on an annual basis.
And of course, now with the economic uncertainty, I think it's very difficult, to make a really accurate projection. But I think that's probably going to be the case into the future until the economy stabilizes and COVID is hopefully really under control. So that study was done fairly recently then.
I believe, and I think Julie might be on the line. I think the last analysis we got was as of June. Julie, are you on the line?
Yeah.
Okay. Was it June of this year, which was for the 2020 year?
Yes, for the 2020 plan year.
Okay. So that's the most recent one. that we've had done. We do them annually, and obviously, just like everything else, they're done in 21 for the prior year. They'll be the 21 one will be done in 22, and so on and so forth. So we're always about 6 months behind after the end of the year because you got to wait for the year to end before you can do the analysis of the plan for that year.
Okay. And I had one other thing that's not directly related to the receivership, but I just wanted to mention that if anyone is changing their withholding or whatever, they should be careful to make sure they deal with Kristen Stafford at GRS. I had the misfortune of dealing directly with Bank of America. I had some forms, and it's been 9 months now, and I've yet to get an accurate withholding statement. In fact, I haven't got any for 5 months now, even though I've been told repeatedly that it's coming next month. It still hasn't. They are withholding correctly, but I keep holding my breath. Last year with the IRS filing, it was done correctly, but for some reason they can't seem to generate a mailing to me, although they had done it perfectly for 16 years. But so deal directly with Kristen Stafford, not directly with Bank of America, as I had the misfortune of doing. But hopefully they'll have it straight, and maybe it'll come this month. I don't know, but it's a minor issue, but it can be irritating. So
Thanks, Bruce.
I'm warning to everybody just in case.
Thank you. Anybody else have any questions?
Yeah, I have something.
Go ahead.
With respect to the diocese, you said that they're only, I guess, getting together at the urging of the courts and the judges. So do you really expect them to really honestly try and come to a settlement, or do you expect to have to drag this out until the end of time?
Well, that's it.
And if so, what pressure can the courts bring to bear?
Yeah, it won't be till the end of time because there will be an end to the litigation process eventually.
Yeah,
With regard to the mediation, it was Judge Smith that suggested to both sides
mhm,
to try to sit down and mediate it.
Yeah.
And it is my hope and expectation that the diocese will walk into it in good faith and put their best foot forward. Now, the problem with a mediation or any type of settlement discussion is where do the parties believe that the settlement should be?
right, yeah, you're looking for middle ground, sure.
If they can clearly walk in and negotiate in good faith, but believe that their exposure is only $1 million, let's say.
Sure.
So, and that wouldn't be bad faith on their part. It's just their belief in the strength of their position. Whether
Mhm,
it's accurate or misplaced time would tell. But it's the mediator's job to try to get unrealistic views and expectations to become realistic. And Chief Williams is very skilled. He handles a lot of very complex and sophisticated mediations. But at the end of the day, it's the parties that have to make the decision.
Right,
And diocese, at the end of, we've scheduled 3 days, 3 consecutive days. If at the end of those 3 days, the diocese has not been convinced, or I haven't been convinced that the position is out of whack, or I guess in the diocese case, it would be too low. In my case, it would be too high. Then we'll walk out of those 3 days without a result, but with a better understanding of where each of us believe the case should settle.
and at that point, there'll be another mediation session, or is this something that you then go to court with?
Yeah, after the 3 days, if we can't reach a deal, if we're
Yeah.
close, the mediator may ask us to select a couple of other dates so we can get back.
Right,
It seems at the end of 3 days that the parties are not going to bridge the gap between them. Then we will report back to Judge Smith and Judge Stern that we were unsuccessful and that litigation is going to continue until somebody thinks mediation might be fruitful again.
yeah,
So the litigation, absent a settlement through mediation, the litigation will continue on. And as I said in the beginning, sometimes as litigation, that process goes with discovery and depositions and things like that, people then had one view before that process starts. And then as that starts, they start to see the strength or the weakness of their case.
Right.
Negotiation posture gets changed.
All right, thank you.
Sure. Bruce, again?
Would it be safe to say that the situation of theory of liability as would apply to the diocese
All right.
is really kind of an unprecedented type of situation? There aren't probably too much case law that would refer to similar situations existing today
Yeah, there's.
in the relationship of the diocese to the hospital.
Yeah, I will tell you that this case is unique.
Yeah.
Never, the posture of this case, the circumstances, and quite frankly, the strategy that we're implementing in this case has never been done, never been tested. So everything is on the table with that. And that may be part of what is giving me on one side some confidence in my position, and the diocese on the other side some confidence in theirs, is that there is no precedent to turn to. So you just have the mind looking at their side of the V, saying this argument is a very good argument and actually should win for these reasons. Without precedent, you don't have anybody to say, yeah, but there was this that happened before, and that's different than what you're trying to do right now. So the lack of precedent here gives the opportunity to argue almost anything and try to apply different theories, but it also does not give the other side pause, because there's no precedent to say that the position is weak or has already been rejected by a prior court.
I mean, the fact that the bishop was chairman of the board, I assume is, perhaps I shouldn't assume, maybe a factor in addition to other aspects of the relationship.
I'm going
Perhaps
to.
maybe you can't comment on that.
I was just going to say, I'm going to leave that statement where it is.
Okay.
I'm not. You can comment on it, but as we are in litigation and heading towards mediation, I don't want to speak to any of those aspects of the case.
All right, I understand. Thank you.
Yes. How are you? Yeah, go ahead.
Can you hear me? Hi, can you hear me?
Yep, I can hear you.
Hi. I got here late. I just got out of work. I know I missed the beginning. Did you say what two stipulations that Prospect was asking of us from the last Zoom meeting we had? You said that Prospect wanted to ask two something, whatever it is, from us.
They never asked us for anything.
Yeah.
Yep, they entered into a settlement with the Attorney General, which I believe was for $50 million, I believe it was. They had to put up $50 million with the Attorney General.
In holdings or something. They had to put it, secure it.
Yep. And so
Yeah.
we never got re-involved in that process. That was a negotiation that was done between the Attorney General and Prospect, and basically
Right, but
terminated
I
their
thought,
cooperation.
okay, I thought following that decision where that money was secured, I thought they had asked you guys about the defense team, whatever, that there was two things that they wanted of us, they were going to ask. Do you remember that from the last Zoom meeting?
I do remember, to be honest. I don't remember the specifics of what they wanted. I know it had to do with changing some of the language in the settlement so that they wanted the money, I believe, and my recollection is a little fuzzy, but I believe they wanted the money pledged in a certain form, and the settlement, if they did it, it would have been a violation of the settlement. But like I said, what they were asking for ended up becoming moot because they were able to negotiate a settlement with the Attorney General, which was satisfactory to the Attorney General. As you know, the whole process was connected to their application for a change in control. So it wasn't technically related to us, but because of our settlement, there were some roadblocks for them in doing what they wanted to do. And we obviously had come out in the beginning voicing our lack of support for that change based on the lack of information. But ultimately, it was the regulator's decision as to how to handle it. And the Attorney General, and I think he did an excellent job for the state in getting Prospect to put up, I believe, like I said, I believe it was $50 million, which basically protected the operations of the hospital if something were to happen for several years. So that was done with the Attorney General. We didn't have any, we didn't have any part in that settlement. That was between Prospect and the Attorney General and them alone.
Okay, so we're still in ERISA plan, correct?
It is, yep, I made the election and you can't go back.
And that's, okay, and the next thing is that last statement that was, the court hearing that we didn't have to go to.
Yep.
with Judge Stern. That had to do with the settlement of Prospect with the monies? Is that what that was about?
No, the last hearing that we had was my report, actually. That was about 2 weeks ago. It was just my general report to the court. We also had a hearing on July 20th in front of Judge Smith, where Judge Smith approved the settlement as well. And you came on late. You might have missed me saying that we have made what we call demand. I don't have to demand it, but that's what it's called. Demand on the letters of credit and the registry of the court to give us the money from those settlements. So the $30 million that we settled for, I said I should have in my hands by the end of the week.
Okay. I apologize for asking you. I tried to get out early. I didn't get released in time, but I didn't want to meet. I look forward to these meetings. I really appreciate you giving us the opportunity to meet. I just want you to know that.
I appreciate that, and I'm glad you could join us, even if it was a little late. I did see you walking with your mask on as you were going.
Oh,
so.
I was flying through I couldn't wait to get out of there. It's a zoo. It's awful. There's 90 patients in there right now. It's awful. So I had to stay over. It was planned, but then they wanted me to stay later. I said, I'm out of here. But I have to wear my mask in the building. So as soon as I got out of the building, I was free. Hi, everybody.
Steve, I have a question. Oops.
She still works at the hospital?
Mm-hmm.
Oh,
Go ahead.
Steve, I have a question. Can you hear me okay?
I got you.
Okay. Assuming that the bishop wakes up but has one day gets up on the right side of the bed, tells his lawyers to make an offer that is acceptable to you.
Yep.
Would that have any effect on the PBGC saying in effect, well, you settled, so there's no longer a claim because you made a settlement? Or if there's still a deficiency, would the PBGC still be liable even if you settle with the diocese?
Yes. So I'll answer that last question first. The PBGC, the claims that the PBGC should step in and take over and protect the plan do not go away if we settle with the diocese.
Okay.
It will exist at whatever the deficiency then would be. So any settlement with the diocese will obviously reduce the deficit that the PBGC would have to fill, but it would not in any way hamper those efforts or preclude us from making any claim. As a matter of fact, although I haven't been told this specifically, it's my opinion based on what I do know of the PBGC and when they typically get involved, that the PBGC actually would prefer me to complete all litigation efforts before they step in. Not only because that would give them a very clear picture of what the deficit is, but also, quite frankly, the PBGC doesn't want to spend the time and money to sue on issues that they aren't as knowledgeable about. So I believe that part of the reason why we haven't heard much is because they just want the litigation to be completed, whatever that means, settlement or going to some judgment at the end of litigation, so that they know exactly what the deficit is that they're looking at. And the only thing they have to do is make a decision as to whether or not to take over the plan. They don't have to decide whether to take over litigation in the middle or even the beginning of it. They can just say, okay, here's the hole and this is what needs to be filled.
Thank you.
Okay. Hey, Carol.
Good evening, everybody. How are you?
Good.
Did you read Arlene Violet's letter concerning the bishop and the diocese?
I spoke to Judge Stern today, and he told me that there was an opinion in the Valley Breeze from
Correct.
Violet. Is that what you're talking about?
Yes, I am. Yes.
Okay. I didn't
I
see it yet, but I heard about it.
Okay. It was stunning, absolutely stunning and on point. I heard this morning through the grapevine that the bishop has plans to retire.
Yeah.
Would that be beneficial to us, do you think?
Um, that's that's a very dangerous question to ask me. I think the diocese, whether it is the current bishop or any interim leader of the Providence Diocese, or any ultimate selection of bishop, I think that all will come in and negotiate in good faith. Obviously, different people look at things differently. And so certainly another person might have a different opinion on what a good settlement is or is not. But at the end of the day, I think the diocese, although it is led by the bishop, I think that there are more voices in the room than just his.
Correct.
And I think they kind of have their idea as they sit today, what their exposure is and what a good settlement would be. And maybe that'll change, maybe that won't. And if he retires before this is over, maybe that'll be a bad thing, maybe it's a good thing. I don't know. I have to give that diplomatic answer. I know that's not what probably anybody on the screen wants me to say, but I have to be diplomatic on that.
We live in hope. And if all else fails, perhaps he'll give us a good discount on that 12.3 million mausoleum that he set up in St. Anne's Cemetery in lieu of our pension.
Yeah. Again, just like Bruce's count, I'm gonna let's leave that one where it was.
A diplomat as always, Stephen. Thank
Okay.
you so much.
Thanks, Carol. Anybody else have any questions? Yes. Motion. You got to unmute.
Steve,
Okay, you hear me?
I can hear you, Marilyn. Yes.
Okay, was I the one you told to unmute?
Either, yeah. Whoever wants to ask can unmute. But I
Okay,
can hear you if you're on mute.
so do you really think that they're gonna go into that negotiation in good faith? Do you really, really think they're gonna do that?
Are you really asking me that question on a
Yeah, I
live
am.
stream?
I am.
I do believe, I will say this in I guess just as a fact of the circumstance, I didn't ask for the mediation, neither did they. It was the judge's request. So it's not like one of us was banging on the table saying we want to mediate and the other one was being resistant to it.
Okay,
So I do believe, and again, as I stated earlier, what they believe is a good faith offer or negotiation may not be consistent with what I think. So they can walk in complete good faith and offer no more than $1 million, and I might think that's an absolute joke. So that doesn't mean they're acting in bad faith. It just means they've got a much different view of the case. So in all seriousness, to answer that, I do believe that they will appear and participate in good faith. That does not mean that we will not be, there isn't the potential that we're light years apart in terms of what we believe exposure is versus what exposure is not.
all right, going back to one of the initial meetings that we had, how much was the plan in deficit? Was it 125 million that we had to make it whole?
Well, let's put it this way. That number, the one you're referencing, which has been in multiple pleadings and whatnot, was given to us by Angel. As you know, ultimately
Okay,
we sued Angel for their role in all of this. So in addition to that, the market has changed and things of that nature. So now if I were to buy annuities, which is what I'd have to purchase in order to fund the plan myself, I believe that the actuary gave me a number that was north of 120. They gave me a range, but it was north of 125 million. So
Okay.
depending on the scenario, it was substantially north of 125 million.
So if you're saying that we have approximately 90 million in the plan right now.
Yeah.
With the last monies that came in, the diocese and the bishop would have to come up with, I would take it, you would accept a settlement that will equal 125 million.
I will accept, I'll accept any reasonable settlement. Obviously, if a settlement offer is made that makes the plan whole and doesn't
Okay.
require PVGC to come in, obviously I take that.
That's what I meant. That's
Yep.
how I should have said it.
So, but what I will tell you is regardless of what we settle for with the diocese, and assuming that it is for less than what the 100% number is, the game isn't over. I believe the reason why we're still, I guess I'll say, slow dancing with the Pension Benefit Guaranty Corporation is because there is an argument that they need to take over this plan. And once the litigation is done, my efforts can focus on them, assuming we don't get 100% that we need from the diocese, which I don't believe is likely. I think we go to the PBGC, and I think we not only have a strong argument, but a very strong argument. And based on the numbers for this pension, the PBGC guarantees up to a certain amount per pension holder per year.
Mm-hmm.
On the numbers of the pension holders, both who have elected and who have yet to elect, everybody, with the exception of literally one or two, fall at or below that maximum threshold for the PBGC. There are a couple that might have to take a small haircut. So just to use round numbers, if the threshold is 70,000 per year, there are a couple of people who, are at 73,000 or 74. And so they would be reduced down to the 70, but it's not a huge reduction. Everybody else would be, based on my analysis, would be whole if PBGC came in, regardless of, at the end of the day, Marilyn, if the PBGC comes in and takes over the plan and protects all of your pensions, I don't really care if I get $1 million from the diocese or 100 million, as long as the PBGC comes in. But because I don't know yet if they will, and I don't know what their position is, obviously I have to go as full throttle as I can with the diocese and get as much as I can, because I don't know how long the discussions with the PBGC will take. It might be very, very quick, or it might be years, and I don't want to risk this pension not having the funds to sustain it while I deal with the PBGC. It's the same thing as I want to make sure I have the funds to sustain litigation if I have to go to the full end of litigation. I want to make sure that each and every one of you, whether you're currently collecting or you can elect at some time, will be able to collect the benefits that you were entitled to, that you worked for, that you were promised, while we try to get the people who are responsible, whether that's the federal government in an insurance type situation, or the diocese, or both, until they step up and help take this over.
Thank you.
Sure.
Steve,
Yes, John.
the 120 million, is that the unfunded liability?
That at the time, back when what Marilyn was referencing, that was what Angel Pension Group said that was the unfunded liability.
And the 100, you said now it's now north of 120.
Well,
That's
let me correct that. I don't necessarily know if it's now north. I'm saying that's the number Angel gave. Part of the reason why I sued them is I didn't have a whole lot of faith in the information that they were giving. So
we need more than 30 million to fill the unfunded liability. We would need, how much would we need to be 100%?
I'll have to get that answer from the actuary. And that's like they gave me, and I don't have the numbers off the top of my head,
Mhm.
they gave me a range because it depends on a number of factors.
Yep.
So it's not They can't say, okay, Steve, you need 132,375,062 cents. It'll be, depending on what type of annuity contracts you get, how long, how many people are currently getting benefits, how many are left. They give that range. And
Yeah, but
that swing could be substantial, John. What I mean
The
by
re-
that, it
the
could be,
reason I said that is because I think some people may get the impression that with the 90 million and the 30 million would be, we would be 100%. That would not be so.
that is not so. No, keep in mind, and even under that analysis, which is not a proper one, when we started this, we had 87 million,
Mhm.
87. And that's when Angel came and said the unfunded liability was 125.
Yep.
So even at that time, I needed a total of 200 and change.
Mhm.
So if we have 90 now and another 30, that puts us at 120. We're still well short of the 200, even under that analysis, which
Yep.
like is not, that's not the way that it gets looked at.
Mhm.
Right. But the annuity gap could be, they could tell me a range of like, okay, under this scenario, you need 150 million, but under that one, you need 220 million. It could be that wide of a gap. So I'll get those numbers and I'll let everybody know. But it will not be an exact number. It'll be based on different analysis based on the market and benefits and everything else.
Thank you.
Motion, you got to unmute.
Do you hear me?
I can hear you now.
Okay, thank you. I have a question regarding the beneficiary. In the amended settlement, my beneficiary is not entered. And I was told that to call Ms. Kristen Stafford.
Yes.
And I have called a couple of times, and all the time they said that she is not available.
Okay.
Is there any way that I could get a form for identifying my beneficiary?
Sure. Julie, do you think we could contact Kristen or Mr. Sultani and see if we can either get the form to send to him or get him the form sent?
Yep, I will reach out to her tomorrow.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome. Anybody else?
Can you hear me?
I can. I see you as a phone number, but I can hear you.
Okay. Just a simple question. The number 2,700 has been thrown around a lot as the number of people in the pension. Is that the number of people collecting, or is that the number of people collecting plus those that have not started to collect yet?
It's the latter. And I forgot, my last report had the actual number of pension participants, but that number has always been the number of people who are in the pension plan, not necessarily who are collecting. Just the number of people who at some point either are collecting or at some point will be eligible to collect. And that also doesn't account for any, whether there are beneficiary interests or death benefits or things like that. So that was just a pure number based on the number of participants existing as of the date of the filing.
And the last question, if you do settle with the bishop and the church, and there is still a deficit, does the federal agency then have the ability to go after the church or the bishop for any more, or once your settlement is done, it's like they can't be charged again?
Correct. Yeah, it's the latter. Once the lawsuits that I have initiated are concluded, whether through the litigation process or settlement, then the PBGC would not have the ability to recommence unless they found a new information that was not dealt with in our lawsuit or dealt with in a settlement, which is unlikely, that they would be precluded from going after any of the defendants again.
Okay, thank you.
Sure. Anybody else? Anyone else? I don't see any hands. Anyone else? All right, if there are no more questions, I want to thank everybody for coming on. I know it's both easier to do Zoom, but in some ways more difficult, and certainly it's less interesting for me, I guess. But I hope everybody enjoys the rest of their night. It's a beautiful night out tonight, it looks like. I'm looking outside, and it looks like everyone's backdrop without the palm tree. And stay safe, and I will see you, barring any significant events, I will see you in approximately 60 days.